have 7 panels happening, and the first one is going to inaugurate on this holiday at Egypt that we are working. We are going to have the Amapá State presentation, and I'd like to call the Secretary of Environment, Joel Rodrigues, the Secretary of Environment of the State of Amapá, and Eduardo Tavares, the Secretary of Planning of the State of Amapá. The topic is the new environmental governance because we have the general panel of the new green economy of Amapá. So, in the first one will be the new environmental governance of Amapá, and then we are going to have concessions with BNDES and Amapá. Now I'm going to give the floor to the Secretary Joel Rodrigues. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Eduardo. I wanted to greet the members of the government participating in this round. I think this is an important moment for building a dialogue with potential partners of the state of Amapá to build the climate agenda. Eduardo has been participating of this challenge, somehow leading all this dialogue process with the different partners. And today we share this uh, panel to talk about the journey we've threaded until now and the construction of a trust uh, process with the partners, and also concerning some concrete experiences of different projects that are very important for the state in this transition process of productive processes so that we can adapt into this low carbon economy. So before I start, I'd like to greet Sita, the executive secretary of the Legal Amazon Consortium. I think that this initiative that was led by Governor Valdez with all the governors at the Legal Amazon Consortium is very important because the Legal Amazon now has this space within this process to establish the dialogue with our subnational entities and the uh, international partners. And that was a very positive decision because we are able to achieve our agenda with that. When we talk about climate, the climate agenda and the relationship with the international community, we always see this question in a recurring way. And this is also happening with some national actors in this process. It's necessary to build this mutual trust. Yesterday, Mauro was the secretary from Pará. He was asked why the resources are not coming. And this is the issue. There's a lack of a trust in this process. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Our guest is now here from Abrama, Caio. And so we are building this trust, and this is a need in this process. And we are here to show you that what we've been doing. We've been doing this homework. Although the climate agenda is very relevant to us, our tradition in this relation with biodiversity has been built for decades. We have a responsibility toward the environment. We've been seeking this model to fight poverty with social inclusion and also with uh, with environmental benefits. So if we observe Amapá today, we observe some challenges inherent to this process. Yesterday, when our colleagues from the Public Prosecutor's Office were speaking, it was clear how hard it is for us to deal with the federative issues in our country. It's even hard to understand our federative model because this model has the municipalities in between, and in the constitutional design of different competences, sometimes you see conflicts in the even in the at the federal level and concerning the environmental management. And in Amapá, you see that frequently, although we have this strong collaboration, even with the Public Prosecutor's Office, when we talk about the federal level, we've had conflicts due to the land issue. But to observe the environment without forgetting the economy and the territory has been a challenge to us due to this reality. And there has been a choice for this system for defending the environment. And during all this time, and we are talking about the last three decades, we've created this distrust concerning some economic activities when we talk about cattle and wood extraction, mining, and we've been observing that as threats instead of opportunities. Now we are in this process of rebuilding this understanding. And of course, that has a due date. Everything that we see concerning economic activities, of course, will be threats if they are uh, illegal, and the consequences will come. But we deal with that in a responsible way using different technologies, so we are able to transform these activities into something instrumental for us to build economic growth with sustainable inclusion and social inclusion. This is the challenge in the state. And this set of situations is such that we've been trying to build in this state. If we observe our environmental governance model, I would say that there are mistrusts from some potential partners, but this is natural. We are going to see that over time we were able to develop this work of building a governance system that engages mainly the participation of the organized civil society and also entities um, that are inspecting us. So we have this challenge of improving the dialogue with the civil society, of improving the federative relationship, because it couldn't be seen uh, as something as a relation between competitors, but a relation with synergies. And we've created this system of environmental defense anchored in a set of conservation units of indigenous land, forming the 78% of our territory in terms of protected area. So within this scenario, we have this challenge. So today, next slide, please. If we observe this panel, that's what I've been talking about. We have in this territory, and I want to show a map about the general situation. So this white territory corresponds to that area in which the state could define in a free way a process of exploration of natural resources. And this is a challenge. although the population is concentrated in the southern region, during all this time, we haven't suffered threats to our biodiversity in the sense of suffering external pressure. But in the last years, that started to happen. Yesterday, Mauro used a word that was interesting. I would say that today the challenge of the state of Amapá is not the deforestation, the fires. If you observe the statistics, we are in a comfortable way. We have no pressure. But the greatest threat we see is to lose the narrative, to lose the control of the narrative, to sustain such a model. Because it will come a time that the external pressures will come, and they've been coming. And we are in a hurry to find partners to help us fund the structuring of different programs that can give us the ability to sustain this agenda and make the transition into the carbon market. This is the greatest threat today. So all this mosaic of diversity somehow it's seen as a hurdle to development, but it's not. So now that the world is doing the math in the international community concerning this emission process of greenhouse gases, I see that we have a privileged stance in this scenario. As Eduardo has mentioned yesterday, we cannot accept this paradox of the community, of the potential donors, privileging their view and to the detriment of the view of others. And we have 90% of the forest coverage that is intact, and we didn't receive this recognition. And that's it. Our delegation is here to sustain the defense of this recognition. So should I destroy the forest in order to recover these areas and then receive compensations or payment for that? It's nonsense. So we should really have a re-understanding of this process so that we can advance. And as I said before, we are in a hurry. Next slide, please. This is the general profile of our conservation unit divided in the different responsibilities at the federal, state, and municipal level, divided by groups of integral protection and sustainable use. And as I've said, I'd like to highlight that the great difficulty beyond this mosaic of different needs and protection of indigenous land, we have another problem because only a residual part of these lands are under the management of the state. So we've been seeing the transference of the lands so that there's this management. Nobody's able to build processes of growth and development without the land. So this is a key issue. And now we are able to conclude this process. So for you to have an idea, this unit here, which is the greatest park of of, of tropical forests in the world, which is the Tucumapi map, it's equivalent to 3 Tucumaquis. So to have an idea about that, we show you the map, but we have to understand the responsibility we take on the state in the governance of this land. In terms of regulation use, we must have this concern concerning this possibility of property concentration when the lands are transferred. So we should do that with a lot of responsibility and care. Next slide. Today, the Secretariat of Environment at Amapá is showing a feature that is not common in the national scenario. The environmental control is not normally done by this decentralized unit, but due to our features, the state understood that we needed a greater control, a greater command. So we centralized in the secretariat. So we have this the environmental management and also the control management in terms of surveillance and so on. Then if we come to this governance model that is very challenging and in fact is also showing how we are making this effort in order to show that we have this work for rebuilding this governance system that is able to provide us credibility and empower us in this process of negotiation. So we had a secretariat of environment that was centralizing the management of different areas, and over time they became specialized areas. And these areas, in reality, they complement different instances of governance to make this public policy work. And the environmental area is not different from the other public policy fields. We have to think about this collegiate uh, stance that is controlling the execution of the policies. So we have to think about this instrument for planning the policy. We must think about this unit administrative unit that will be responsible for executing the policies, and we should think about the funding instrument for this policy. So if we observe the environmental governance in the state, we see that the environment part, the water resources, conservation units, climate units, we have all the units organized, especially highlighting in the collegiate instance the participation of civil society, the organized civil society. So despite all this process and the institutional relationship of the public power with the federal instance and municipality, which is complicated because we have different competences, but we make this effort when we observe each one of these components. In the area of water resources, we have this detail concerning the governance of the water basins. So we are going to have managers for the basin, we are going to have plans for the basin. So we cannot accept this mistrust discourse. Of course, we must build different elements, we must build different processes which are more transparent, but this is enabling us to establish a dialogue and look for partners. It's not very easy because the subnational entities and the federal level, it's hard for these stances to allocate environmental resources because there are key areas such as health, public safety, infrastructure. But when we observe this picture, we observe that this is present because the funding mechanisms are present. But for us to structure this program concerning the red area, we need heavy investments. And that's what is bringing us here. We had approved at CONARED our eligibility. So we are here. We have this title. We need to prepare our jurisdictional model to go to the market, the voluntary market, and so on. But we need the support of different partners. Juliana is not here now, but we are going to sign an uh, uh, a letter of intentions. Tocantins has shown how to enable both things at the same time, to work with the past credits and to trade the future. Now we are going to have to make this effort to organize, establishing this dialogue with the national and international communities. But it's good to highlight that the Amazon has different realities within it. It's reproducing a circumstance of inequality that is present in the entire country, and each state had opted for a different model of development. So that's why it's important to speak to the community. The dialogue with the federal level is not reaching this reality, and the history of public policies in Brazil is reproducing that. And in the environmental area, we like to talk about the great anchor that the states are working with to try and find funds to fight deforestation and fires. It's pity that, but as the statistics are going to show, we don't have deforestation. We are carbon negative, but we must work around this policy because that was the policy that was taught for the region. Without seeing the diverse reality. So in general lines, that's what I wanted to talk. Historically, we have this model being built, and we have this logic based in the dialogue with the different institutions, with the organized civil society. And with this dialogue of Emerge, we've been talking to Funbio for having them as a partner for specific resources. We also have the climate agenda so that we can advance with a lot of safety and without giving up this model that was a choice of the Amazon people. And now we really see the risk of losing the control of this narrative. And who thinks differently to maybe is going to take the political control, and then we're going to have this concrete threat. So this is the spirit of this conversation that we wanted to talk to you. Of course, we have other aspects, but they are not so important. What is important is to show you this reality, which is rich in biodiversity, with this historic effort that the state has been made to organize itself in terms of governance. Just to mention a concrete example about that, in this government, we've been funding with resources of the state in partnership with the National Development Bank, all the mapping. Nobody's able to manage the territory without the right maps. So we've updated the geodesic network, and now we are finalizing the economic zoning and the ecology zoning. In the white area, we have forests, we have cerrado, and the zoning is going to answer what we can and we can't do with safety and with the environmental safety. So we've made this effort with the National Development Bank, and Eduardo is going to talk about different efforts. And the Governor Valdez always speak about this opportunity to dialogue with the international community. He says that the environmental problem of the state has not to do with forests, and it has to do with sanitation. We've just built this great project in partnership with the National Development Bank that will make us reach the targets of sanitation and sewage and so on. And we have another ongoing project concerning solid resources. So I'd like to give the floor to to Pedro Arno for him to find the questions, but we are ready. We are part of CONARED. We are building partnerships with the Free Coalition, with Energy, and we hope to conquer once and for all the credibility within this dialogue so that we can advance and receive the recognition that the state of Amapá deserves in this current scenario, especially in this market of carbon and environmental services. So thank you all. I'd like to give the floor to our colleague Eduardo to complement and also to talk about his topic. Do you have any other questions, everyone? In reality, I'd like to add to the issue before I start my presentation. I'd like to effectively say good morning, and I'd like to greet our colleague Joel and also all the Amapá uh, coalition and the Legal Amazon Consortium, and I'd like to talk about our stance. Many times we put ourselves in this position of asking for help, and we must take a stance in a firm way when we talk about carbon markets. The carbon market is here, it's advancing. So we have national and international transactions, especially in the private market and also at the public market. We have over 60 three different initiatives for precifying carbon, national and international initiatives. So this market is covering 11% of all the emissions in the planet, and the average of appreciation is $10 today and $10 per ton. And the states of the Amazon and states such as Amapá, that is negative in carbon with 90% of its territory with intact forest coverage, is not receiving a single real for that. This is a paradox, and we must discuss that. And it's important for us as representatives of this delegation, we have the responsibility to bring the experience of leaders such as the governor Valdez. He's been working in his fourth mandate, more than 20 years defending, discussing that since the governor task force with Schwarzenegger in California and the formation of the Californian market, which is one of the greatest markets of carbon today. And we've been showing this governance that is very much discussed, and the donors themselves are not seeing clearly. And the Secretary Joe has shown this governance with the participation of academia, social organizations, civil society, and so on, with this transparent governance that is published with all the stages that are guaranteeing the planning to the accountability. So today in Brazil, we have a model of governance for the execution of public policies, and our bank system in Brazil is one of the most evolved in the planet. So if on one hand we have different deliveries, the state of Amapá is one of the most digital transformed states during the pandemic. Today, we are first in the North region in terms of digital government. So we've advanced a lot in terms of digital transformation, evolution, technology, governance. That's not being translated by some mystery. And it's important to be here in the space of the Legal Amazon Consortium that was able to exist due to the partnership so that we can discuss in a clear way, not a request for help, uh, and a request for aid in this climate emergency, but this stands that the Amazon is prepared and able to enter this bond market that are recognized by the federal government. So there's no discussion concerning the approval for us to participate. The federal government from Itamaraty, from our uh, foreign affairs stances and also other stances are certifying that the state of Amapá and other states are eligible to trade this credit. So I think this is what's new for uh, for us here to bring to COP27, that the state has a stock of assets which are available to be traded. There are countries which signed the Paris Agreement with goals that are far from being fulfilled. We know that we had a pandemic, we have different situations, but the climate emergency is showing to be even more relevant. So we must recognize that. And what's the most important, and we've been discussing and we've been listening when we bring this agenda, is what are the states going to do with these resources? Because the great fear is that eventually the states which have big budgets. And when we observe the GDP of Brazil and the public administration of Brazil, we have important figures, and the states know, the population knows what is going to do with the resources. Is not going to be applied without a governance. This governance structure will guarantee that the resources will be applied with this council formed by the civil society, by the academia, by the public administration, will define in a responsible way how to use the resources in this transition into this green economy. So we have to observe the different methodologies in at national level that were validated and recognized. So we have environmental services provided, recognized and certified. They are eligible and authorized by the federal government to be traded internationally and nationally, and they are available, and they are going to fund the priority projects that are presented by the consortium. We are going to have different agendas as well during these days to show you, and we always highlight these two priority programs. We have to stop the deforestation and fires, and we have to improve the economy for the consortium. We've been mapping that within the Legal Amazon Consortium. So Amapá is prepared with the other states. The 9 states show that. And it's important that we have states such as Mato Grosso and Pará, great states, great economies in our region, and states such as Amapá and Roraima in this initial state. But all the 9 states are prepared for this debate, and we are prepared for the execution, and that has been proven. We have executed 400 million in 2019. All the states executed with great deliveries and great transformations, and we are here at COP prepared to enter, not requesting this humanitarian help, and of course cooperation and aid is always welcome, but in a in a innovative way, we should use credits and assets in this global market to fund this green economy that the world is asking for us. The world is asking for this balanced biome, this low carbon economy. We have a plan for this economy, and the way to fund is with the transaction of the credits which are traded in the planet. So I'd like to thank you once more, and we can open for questions while we we start the second presentation with the second session. Thank you.